this is how you're going to go ahead and switch tracks to tires. So let's get on with that. So to begin, there's two screws, one here and here. You pretty well have to take this whole thing clear apart, which isn't exact. I'm not in love with that, but nevertheless, you got to do it. But it's really simple, so that's kind of cool. Okay, that's all there is to taking the bottom part apart. Now we're just going to set that off to the side. That's all you need to do. Then I'm going to go ahead and take that rear tire off, just like so. Easy peasy. And then the thing I want to draw your attention to is these two screws here. We don't want to lose those, so I'm just going to push those out so I can set those nice and tidy off on their own. Now, something to keep in mind here, one is fine threaded and one is coarse threaded. The coarse threaded goes into the front hole near the tracks or wheels when you're done, because this piece of plastic is where that screw goes, and the fine thread goes into the die cast in the back. So this is the front, that's the back. Fine threads to the back, coarse threads at the front. All right, after we're done with that, here's why you have to take this whole dadgum thing apart right here. One, you've got this pin that holds the top portion of this track so it pivots, like you see there. And then you got a tiny, tiny screw way down there in the bottom. You can barely see that right there. Well, you can't get a screwdriver to take that out, so you got to take this thing apart. Okay, before we do that, we have to take off one side of those pins that hold the feeder house on. So you have two pins. Pick one, it doesn't matter which necessarily. And they're aluminum, so that makes them easy to take out. So all I'm going to do is grab that with these are my broken side cutters. I'm just going to grab the head of that and pull it out like so. Okay? And then there's a pin, well, right here. That tiny pin goes into this tiny hole right there, and then your pin that held the feeder house on the die cast is right there, the larger one. So the tiny one goes for a pin on the plastic, and then the larger one holds the feeder house on. So we just need that out of the way for now, and that'll be apparent why in a minute. Next, there's two screws that are identical, one behind the tracks, so you just flop the tracks out of the way and unscrew that just like so. Then there's another screw right here. Well, I don't think I've drawn them out quite enough. We'll go ahead and keep doing that. They're not very long. There, that should do it. There. And that's why you have to take that aluminum pin. See that aluminum pin? You take it out of one of the sides. You can leave this on, that's okay. But you do need to unattach it so you can get to the screw. All right. You'll need a flathead screwdriver like so. And this is just a long pin that holds that top bogie or top drive wheel in place. And you can just pry that straight up like so. Just like that. And out it comes. So that's just pressed into the wheel. Then you got to take this screw out. And there it is. So those two are what hold your tracks onto the die-cast frame. That's all there is to it. I want to put those screws together so those are not in my way there. Now, whether you take that screw out first or take the pin out first is entirely up to you. I haven't found that it matters. This is the fourth one I've done, the fourth combine I've done like this. I've changed 3 of them to duals, and 1 of them will get LSWs. That one's being a bit stubborn. Come on, get out of there. Oops, look at that, wouldn't you know? And of course, they always give me trouble when I'm live. Oops, There it goes. Hallelujah. All right. So, and then this bogey, it just sits in there like so. And then that pin goes in it. So it's nothing too fancy. Anyways, you can set that off to the side. I'm really not sure how you would repurpose those, but anyways. Okay, now our combine is apart. The screws are free. We can begin reassembly. Don't forget your 2 fine threaded screws. Go into the sides. And then you can put that back together. And I bought my tires from Chucky's Pulling Tires, and whatever else's brand name is, I don't recall it right off the top of my head. You can put your rear axle in if you choose. You can wait till the end. It doesn't matter when you put this back together. Haven't found that it matters just a whole lot. Okay, that's ready to go. And then we're ready to put the body back onto the combine. Or I guess the frame. Oh, I almost forgot. If you want to put something in there to hold this feeder house up. Now, if you're not going to play with it, if it's just a display item, you could, if you wanted to, just leave this alone. If you did want to put something in there to just give it some support, you could find a piece of pipe or rod and see if you can put a piece of pipe or rod in there and then crimp it to give it some strength to hold that in place. That's entirely up to you. Like I said, if all you're going to do is leave this as a display piece, then you could just leave that alone. Now you do lose a little bit of the friction that holds that up, so this may not hold a header in the transport position or up anyways. May not hold it up very well depending on the weight of that header. You could, of course, add something to create some friction. You could put, like I said, this pin in here, anything to just create that friction you need for it to hold itself in place. I did this on one with some aluminum pipe a little bit ago, and it worked okay. I'm not in love with it. But anyways, any kind of pipe or rod will do. You could maybe even, if you could find a small screw and a nut, that would be even better, because then you could tighten that nut and bolt to give this plenty of friction so it will stay in the upright position. All right, as I mentioned before, the fine threaded bolt that came out of the body, it goes in the back. Looks like I need to remagnetize my Phillips. And that didn't start straight. We'll try it again. Okay. And then the coarse threaded nut, or screw, I'm sorry, coarse threaded screw goes in the front, and it will go in the plastic. And it's together. Next, so this is the pin that held the tracks in, okay? So this pin that held the track, that idler or drive wheel, it went through that hole right there. We're not going to use that. We're going to use this lower one here. Now, I don't know how I'll show you how I am assembling the wheels on here. So rather than use a rod, see, if you just used a plain old rod like that, it's completely sloppy. So what I've done was I've got 4 pieces of pipe right there. I got like 732, I forget all the sizes, but this pipe fits this hole right here very well. And you might need to work it a little bit to get it in, or come in from the other side, depending on how hard it wants to. There we go. Now, if you're sitting there fighting it and it's just not working, what you can do, and this is really simple, just get you a small round pin file, and you could file that opening just a little bit bigger if you need to. There, grab the right one finally. And you may not even have to do this very much or very long. The goal here is just to make it so our axle will slide through a little easier. There, it's going. Perfect. Now, look how wide that is. Now, that's on purpose. I want my wheels to fit up against this axle. However, if I were to make this pipe right here, this axle, the same width as this die-cast housing, my tires are going to bump up against this extra bit of die-cast there. Now, you have choices. You could, if you want to, take a cutoff wheel of some sort or a saw and just cut this die-cast clear out, or you can make this axle housing wider and then slide it in place and then mount your wheels to that. So your wheels will be as wide as this housing right here. Okay? Now I'm using 16th inch rod. I'm going to go through those just like this. Ta-da! And then here are the tires. So like I said, I bought these from Chucky's Pulling Parts right here. And I drilled, I'll tell you what I did first. First, I painted these with aluminum paint. Okay. Then I pre-drilled this hole right here with a 16th inch bit, and then I used a 5/64 bit. So this hole right here is 5/64. I found that using 16th inch rod like I have here, and then putting that in a 16th inch hole was just too tight. And I ended up breaking one of these little 3D printed housings right here. So I didn't want to do that again, so I just made the hole bigger, and as you can see, it just works perfectly. Like that. Then, here's how and then I glued these together. So these two rims, they come in separate pieces. I glued these together, and then I just used this 5/64 bit to hold them together like that. So I put a bead of glue on the inside of this rim, the inside dewel, and then put the outside dewel on, and then set it like this until the glue is cured, which has been about 20-30 minutes, and now it's ready to be mounted on the axle. So this is really uncomplicated, and ta-da, there we go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run a little bit of glue right here on the end because I want that to be mounted to the axle. Nice. And now you don't need a lot of glue here because one, we're not going to play with this. We're just going to set it on a shelf for the most part. And there. So I'm going to let that chill out for just a moment. I'm using some Instaset here just to cure that glue, so I can go ahead and slide this forward and it will not stick to the extra brass there. And I think what I might do, I'm going to shorten up this little piece right here. And the rod should slide through the axle. Easy money. Now, if you do not like all that brass that you're seeing there, you can take a paint pen or something, anything, to give that some color so you kind of hide the brass and you don't see it. I'm going to slide on my other set of duals here. Should have started on the inside, huh? Rather than the outside. And now what I want to do is Gonna make a little mark down here. Start giving myself something so I can start cutting that axle down. You could measure this and get it much more precise than just working it out like I'm doing. And this is 16th inch piano wire, by the way. Or actually, is this piano wire? Or I don't know. I found that like marker flags you would use to mark utilities and different things around the house or out on the farm or in a construction site, those flags are also 16th inch. And they make great axles. So I just started buying the flags. That's been working really well. Okay, I like what I got going on there. So now what I'm going to do is a little bit of glue right there. I'm just kind of wicking away some of that glue so I don't glue the axle to the housing, because that would annoy me a lot. Let's see if I got it. Okay. And a little bit of Instaset to cure that. And I think we got it. So that's how that thing is going to look now. So rather than having tracks, now we've got duals. And these, like I said, come from Chucky's Precision Puller Parts. And this is ready for the farm. So here's how it looks from the side. Now, using this particular size of tire, and I don't recall off the top of my head what size I used, and I don't have that invoice with me at the moment, so I'm not sure exactly what size I used, but it does make your combine, it doesn't set flat. The cab is a bit raised. It really doesn't bother me. I think it looks pretty cool yet, and I like the duals better than the tracks. So this is number 4 or 3 of 4 I've done. I have another one to do, but it's getting LSWs. But anyhow, really nothing to it. That's how you're going to change your Case IH combine with tracks to duals. Nothing to it.